right?
No, I don't.
All
What?
right, that's the way it goes. All right, welcome to the Practical Pistol Show. My name's Ben Steger. I'm here to answer your shooting questions. From Georgia, we have producer Candice with a
Hey.
haircut.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Short.
Yes, it's bobbed, as they used to say, like in the 20s. It's
I love
if you
that
have
old-timey slang. Now you're on the trolley.
yeah, you are. If you I can't wait to see the comments rolling on that. And from Portland, uh, the artist formerly known as Origami AK. It's Gabe White.
Why in the world were you known as Origami AK?
It was a name I picked back when I had to pick a name to register for internet forums, and I didn't actually post anything. I was just, read them, and I picked it because I made origami AKs out of dollar bills.
Okay.
Okay. That's
why.
awesome. Okay.
The explanation
That
is
is
excellent.
logical. All right.
I mean, what could be less threatening than a paper gun?
A paper airplane.
I guess.
A wad of paper. Anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so today we are talking about, well, I think we got an interesting little kerfuffle, if that's the word, got rolling over at Pistol Forum, and as we're recording this, it's still going. It's just
22
going on.
pages and 2 thread splits later.
It's going on my Facebook page now. It's going on the Doodie Project forum. Candice will link this up in the show notes, of course. So a picture was posted, a guy shooting competitively. We can tell that because he has an open gun. And from what it looks like in the picture, the dude, the sights are not in a position on the open gun where he can see the sights and the target. It looks like this guy's looking at a target, the gun's kind of on its way up, and he's already got his finger in the trigger guard, or so it appears in the photograph. Is that fair so far, Gabe?
Yes.
Okay, so this, I mean, it was put out there like, discuss safety. What are the odds he was called? What are the odds his safety was on? And what are the odds his trigger weighs more than 2.5 pounds? That's how this photograph was put out there. And it didn't take long before this turned into a pissing contest where guys are posting pictures of all sorts of people with their fingers in the trigger guard, or what appears to be their fingers in the trigger guard when maybe they wouldn't want them in there. And it's kind of gone on to be like, this is indicative of this is what happens when you're a shithead gamer. You get your finger in the trigger guard when you don't need it in there.
Right.
So that's a lot of people's opinions, and of course a few gamers have gotten hyper defensive about this.
I don't know.
Gabe, what's your take?
I don't think they're defensive. I think they're offensive about it.
They're offensive? Yeah, the best defense is a good offense, I guess. Gabe, what's your take on this situation?
Well, I think the original picture is pretty well as you described, but there's a really fundamental part of it that's missing, which is we can't see the target. We don't have any real sense of whether this guy could reasonably be aimed at the target, even though he's not on the dot site or not.
That's true. Okay, but let me ask you this: the picture, does it look good? Because this was a marketing photo. So that picture just by itself, would you look at that and be like, yeah, that looks 100% kosher, just based on the photo?
I would wonder.
Right. Okay. So
you can't tell.
It is a questionable photo.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about this? The debate, I suppose.
Well, I think that the debate is full of some pretty false divisions and false ideas, and the debate seems to be, to a degree, centering around there's a way that you ought to handle guns to win in the game of USPSA or other action pistol shooting, and then there's a way that you ought to handle the guns when in real life on the streets. And I'm not convinced that there needs to be this division. I think that it's essentially going to be the same thing, because the argument really kind of comes down to, well, if you want to win the game, you're going to get your finger on the trigger way early. And my question is, I don't think that there's any real advantage to that in the game either.
No, probably not. But let me ask you this: would it be fair to say that a lot of competition shooters get their fingers on the trigger earlier than they maybe have to?
I don't know. Probably, because I think out of everybody, I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people do that, whether they're gamers or tactical guys or anything else.
Yeah. Candice, your question was, how do you define have to?
Too early or have to? I mean,
Yeah, well, that's a good question. That's one that's kind of come up, and I think there have been some pretty good definitions of that. But yeah, it does have to start there, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of it is how do you choose to define these things? Candice, what were your thoughts on this? You've read through most of it.
I think it's much ado about nothing. I mean, if it's not an ND, I mean, and it's not obviously running around with your finger like
all right,
in the trigger guard, then it's not a problem.
So you'd say unless it's a blatant violation of safety rules, you don't give a shit.
Yeah, and I mean, if a gun goes off, obviously, then it's a problem. But he shouldn't be pointing it at anybody or anything anyway. So, you know, it is a game, and the game has rules. And
there were some photos posted later of guys like doing press outs and shit, getting their fingers in the trigger guard, like pretty early, like maybe when the gun's pointed up over the berm still. You'd look at that and say that's no issue, no problem?
Well, no, because if it was, they'd be slinging rounds over the berm, and that would be pretty noticeable.
Right. So you look at that. I mean, no issue, no problem with it.
Right. I look at the results instead of like the form of it.
So as long as there's no NDs, Candice is cool with it.
In that instance, yes.
All right. Cool.
Not just like, I don't know, walking around with your finger. Oh yeah, it's fine. I'm under control. But it's just like, you know, if there's a timer involved, people want to win, and they're going to do whatever they're going to do.
But then it's back to the question of, does that actually get you anything to get on the trigger at that early?
Obviously it does, or people wouldn't do it.
I don't think.
People do a lot of dumb shit, Candice.
I'm just saying, they think it does, or it's, I don't know. Does
I think there's
wiggling my hip a little bit to draw help me? Probably not, but I do it anyway.
I think there's frequently a difference between what people think they're doing and what they're actually doing.
Sure.
Yes. All right. So I had my thinking on this. There was two main thoughts that I had watching this whole thing unfold. The first one is, be really careful what you fucking post online. So the fact that there was a marketing photograph that looked, I mean, all of us probably would agree it was a questionable photo. That should not ever have been used. So, like, I think you should be really careful because every dumb motherfucker now has a YouTube channel and they're posting videos and stuff. You should just be really careful what you're putting out there and make sure that it looks kosher. There's no advantage to, like, this conversation is not helpful for I forget who the shooter was in the photo, but it's sure not a good thing for that guy. So I think being careful what you do with, you know, photos and videos. If there's anything remotely fucked up about it, you probably shouldn't post it. And I've posted plenty of questionable shit involving me in the, you know, over the years, and I just kind of, like, I'm pretty careful now what I post, because these sort of conversations are not, it's not super awesome to be at the center of this thing. And the other thing I would say is what Gabe said. What you think you're doing and what you're actually doing are very often very different things. So you can use slowed down video or like full speed video, whatever, any photographs you get of yourself while you're shooting to help you improve both your safety and your appearance of safety. So I remember one of the first section matches I shot, a guy was he had a high-speed camera taking a lot of photographs, and after the match, he sent me the photos and was like, dude, FYI, it looks like your finger's in the trigger guard when you're reloading. So I took that as an opportunity to stop doing that. And that was actually helpful for me to improve my safety and appearance of safety. Instead of, it didn't get me DQ'd from the match or whatever. That's not what it was about. It was just about making myself better and reducing the chance of me lighting one off when I was reloading, because that'd be a bad thing.
So,
Gabe, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, a quick question. What did you actually change? Did you change getting your finger outside the trigger guard, or did you make your finger in a higher position outside the trigger guard so it was more clear?
I was hyper conscious of having an index point like well outside the trigger guard when I was reloading from that point on.
Was it also was it also above the trigger guard? Like
yes.
Okay. That's one thing that I think makes it hard to judge safety under USPSA rules, that it requires the finger be outside the trigger guard, because at the angle that you're at, I think as an RO following a shooter, it to me sure looks, it is very, very difficult to tell the difference between finger is outside the trigger guard or finger is inside the trigger guard, unless it's just really egregiously inside the trigger guard. It's pretty hard to tell. And you can definitely tell the difference when the finger is high versus the finger is low.
Right. But like as a shooter, I mean, there's what the rules are, and there's the guys enforcing the rules, and that can be tough to do. Obviously, at the speeds people are going, it can be really tough to tell these things in an instant, right? But after the fact, if you have, you have video, you have photographs. If you see anything you don't like the look of, just change it so it looks. The smartest thing to do is to have yourself both be very safe and appear to be very safe, as much as you can. That's good, right?
Sure, but so let me ask you this about something you said a second ago. You said it wasn't good to be at the center of all this. It isn't good for the person at the center of the storm.
Fuck no.
So what about it is bad? Is it just really not fun, or are you saying like there's some material effect, like somebody's going to lose a sponsorship or a job or something?
Well, I don't know that anybody would lose a sponsorship or lose a job over it, but no, like I've been that dude. Maybe not for a safety related thing, and like it's not a fun thing to have lots of people like picking apart some photo or some video, like sort of hyper analyzing your safety shit. And we saw a little bit of that on the thread. Like the guy who started the thread fucking pieced out of it as soon as people started going through his videos. So I think like going through his videos and posting screen caps of questionable sort of scenarios was, that was it's a legitimate thing to do, I guess, but it's like it changes the tenor of the conversation quite a lot, and that's not fun. That's not productive. Like if you're focused on getting better at shooting and that sort of stuff, like having a conversation like this is totally unproductive. It's pointless. This is one reason along the list of many reasons that I don't even bother to post match videos anymore. Like I'm not going to do it because you get sucked into conversations that are pointless and unproductive. See what I'm saying, Gabe? Yeah. All right. Anything else to say about it, Gabe? Shall we can kill it?
Not really. I don't know. I don't really think it's. I realize maybe it's not good for maybe the people who are directly involved in being the center of attention with it. But I think I see on Pistol Forum an opportunity for people to find the common ground that is essential to use of the handgun, whether it's in a competitive venue or a defensive venue. I really think there's a lot more commonality, a lot more common ground than the gamer versus Timmy positions that get kind of staked out there. I think they have a lot more in common than a lot of people give it credit for.
Aren't they?
Yeah,
aren't they saying that like
absolutely.
Gamers are like? Aren't the gamers basically saying we're just better than the Timmys and just deal with it, or what? I don't understand I just don't get where the straw men keep coming up.
Well, I think there's a few guys probably on Pistol Forum that look at it and say getting your finger on the trigger early is something that happens when you start gaming. But
yeah, in that thread.
From what I would watch, it's something that I would say it starts to happen when you go fast. So if there's any desire for speed, sometimes people start cutting corners, and that may be with trigger finger discipline. And you can be a Timmy, and just in the desire of going fast, you can have your finger on the trigger when it's not the best.
Yeah.
Is that about right, Gabe?
I was going to say there are no less than 3 very vocal Timmy side type people that I have now seen pictures of since this discussion, where they are clearly not doing what they tell everybody that they do and that people should do. Obviously not.
Yeah, that's one thing. I've been in the last few years, I've become very sensitive to the fact that what you think you're doing and what you're actually doing are very different things.
Yeah.
To the point where you can be watching. I mean, now that I've done had a camera crew around when I'm doing my shit, and I have an opportunity to go look at all this footage from all these different angles, you get a really good sense of what it is that you're actually doing. And it's like, I know that my finger gets on the trigger pretty early when I'm drawing and ripping on a close range like a 3-yard target. I know that my finger gets on the trigger pretty early. Do I think that the gun's pointed at the ground when that's going on? No. But if you caught if you got a still photo of that at the right time, it might not look really good. If the targets are a little further away, I don't think that happens as much. But it's a matter of sort of understanding that what's going on in your brain and what actually happens when you're in a hurry. They can be very different, and just making an effort to constantly tweak that stuff and improvement, I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Throwing people under the bus with it's, I don't think, productive.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get to answer this for myself probably pretty soon, because there was some request on Pistol Forum for me to find a high-speed camera and take a high-speed video of my draw so we could figure out what I was actually doing. And
I don't think you should do that.
You don't think so? I don't know.
I don't think you should share that unless it makes you look great.
Somebody lent me a high-speed camera, so I'm going to try to figure out how the thing works and see if I can do it. And see. I'm really curious to see what we'll see, because I think there's some finer points that get lost in this, because it takes time to take your finger out of register and put it onto the trigger, and then it takes more time to actively press the trigger. And during that time, say in the case of the draw, the whole draw is progressing, and it's still small enough time increments that your finger could be leaving register, before your hands joined. You could be touching the trigger halfway through having the gun extended. I mean, it all ends up melding together.
Yeah, and you should make sure you do this sort of experiment with a lot of different target difficulties, because you might see things change if you're drawing to like a 2-inch dot at 7 yards, as opposed to drawing on a 5-yard human-sized target.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, good. All right, Candice, it's time for some shooting questions. So
all right,
hit it.
Okay, so first question comes from New Zealand, and he cannot wait for you to visit later in this year. Or, I don't know, like Santa Claus or something. I have a podcast question that will probably piss you off. It's a gear question. People talk about getting the perfect load all the time, but for me, I've just worked up a load that makes major. I shoot open, added a few power factors so I don't accidentally go minor, and shoot. What I'd like to know is, how do you personally go about tuning the load for your gun? And not just to get the gun to run, I'm asking for the point of view that my gun runs reliably already. I'm after the last few percent to help the gun settle faster and improve splits at longer ranges. Do you get above minor for production, add a few power factor, and then start tweaking from there? Assuming the gun runs all the time, at what point do you start messing with recoil spring weights, if that's even a thing in production?
Shit.
Hey, I just did that, actually.
Oh my God.
I've tried build drills at different distances with varying loads, going up, say, 0.2 grain increments, but it's tricky to tell the differences. Any advice you provide would be awesome. Hit it.
Oh, I don't think you're gonna like the answer. So, what I do is, I put some powder in the case of whatever I've got. Right now it's WST, and then I load a bunch up. And if it looks like an appropriate amount of powder, then that's fine. So I'll load those. Then I go and I shoot them. And if everything feels okay and it functions, then I load a lot more of them. and then that's the end of that process. That's it. It's that simple for me. So I don't sit and tweak and fuck around with the loads to try and get them perfect.
That sounds
Just
so tedious.
load them, shoot them.
You could be shooting or dry practicing or something instead. It just sounds so boring to me.
What? Oh my God, this is so fucking tedious.
Yeah.
That one is like, well, I'm changing around. I add a couple, like 0.2 grains, or what do you say? Adds a couple grains.
0.2 grains.
Oh my God, yeah, I add 2.2 grains and do build rolls at a bunch of different distances that I can't really tell.
Well, then maybe he shouldn't bother with it.
Well, you know what? I can't tell a difference either, so then I'm done with that. Like, it's like you load it and you can tweak up 0.2 grains or 0.4 grains or whatever. It doesn't make a huge difference.
I'd say
you can fuck around.
Yeah,
you can fuck around with different bullet weights.
Yeah, your powder and bullet matters a whole lot more.
Yeah, but
even then, I mean.
Yes, but if he's asking what I personally do, I just what I described. Like, I'll be honest, I have not weighed the powder charge that my press is throwing right now, so I don't know what it is, and I don't care. I've chronoed the rounds. They shoot kind of hot. It's like 1140 FPS for 125 grain bullets.
Oh, God, I can't believe you chronoed them. My image of you is shattered. You're such a nerd.
Well, a guy had a chrono at the range. Already set up. So I'm like, oh, I'm kind of curious. I'll chronograph my practice ammo. And it was plenty hot, so I was like, okay, cool. That's good. But to find something that if it functions the gun and it makes power factor, you know, with a little bit of a cushion, that's fine. You're good to go. So I don't really worry about it a whole lot. As far as messing around with recoil spring weights, that can make a pretty dramatic difference in how the gun behaves. And that's probably more interesting to mess with, but still, it's not something that matters a whole lot. I find a weight what's more important is that the gun functions.
Yeah.
You know, so you find something that the gun actually functions with, and then it's like, I'm not going to fuck around with it anymore. Gabe, what about you? You've messed with your recoil springs. What'd you do?
Well, I've tried some 13 and 15 pound ones on a steel.
Now, what kind of gun is this?
A Glock.
Glock 34, dog.
Oh, right. The gun. Okay.
The gun. That's it.
And it's always really hard for me to tell differences in little things like that. And eventually, I think I kind of was able to tell the difference. So I got a 13-pound spring in my gun now, and I'm trying some gold dot with the 15-pound spring to see if I think that's a good idea or not.
Gold dot is
has this been
bullets,
productive?
right?
Has this been productive for you, Gabe?
Yeah, I finally feel like the gun is settling a little bit more easily with a little less movement with the lighter spring.
Yeah, people
it was hard
tend
for
to
me to tell the difference though, but eventually I did.
People tend to prefer to lighten the springs up.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me about this is I like the feel of a 13-pound spring in a Glock 34 myself, but what I don't like is guys putting like 11-pound springs in there and trying to make that work. It's kind of like you want to find something that is going to be reliable. Like I think the 13s are okay. You want something reliable, and then if some guys are like, hey, I liked going from the factory 17, I think. And guys like going from 17 to 13, so then they figure like, hey, 11 must be better, or whatever. So they try to get it as light as they possibly can, because they might like the feel of that, but if it compromises reliability, it's fucked.
Yeah.
You agree, Gabe?
Oh yeah.
Candice, speaking of compromising reliability by fucking around with your gear endlessly, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah. I just put a heavier recoil spring in my Tamfo. Heavier everything. For more reliability.
Yeah. How light was your recoil spring?
Honestly, I don't know. I lost track of which one was in there. But it was lighter.
What did you put in?
I tried a 6 at first. That was stupid.
Oh my lord.
Hey, it
Holy
worked.
shit.
You know, it worked, but it was funny. I mean, it was really funny. And then, like, I think I had a 9 in there, but now it's 10, so I know what it is.
All right.
Because I didn't know. I lost track.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, Candice. Oh my God. All right, read the next question.
That's awesome. Yeah, so when using a double-action gun and encountering a light strike on a primer, is it better to rack the slide to chamber a new round, or just pull the trigger again since the gun is already up and on target? Shooting a single-action or striker-fired gun, it was second nature to just quickly rack it and get back to shooting. But with a double-action gun, I find myself pulling the trigger again.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, that's what you're gonna catch yourself doing. I do that in practice. If I have a primer that doesn't go, I'll second strike it and pop it and have it go, because I burn up all my shitty primers in my practice ammo. It is not best practice to get in the habit of striking again, because you might be missing a primer. That primer might be bad and never going to go. Like, who the fuck knows what could be wrong with your ammo?
Yeah.
That, and you might feel like everything's chambered properly or whatever, and maybe nothing went in the chamber. There could be a lot of other things that went wrong with your gun. I don't think it's best practice to pull the trigger again and try to pop whatever that round is, even though that's a habit that's going to develop in you if you shoot a lot and you shoot a lot of reloaded ammo.
Yeah, because we don't want to waste the ammo, right? That's the reason.
Yeah, that's not the best way to handle things. You probably want to get in the habit of probably tap racking or doing something else other than trying to light that ammo off. Because Candice, didn't you, when you read this question in the pre-show?
Yeah, I just kept pulling the trigger and I racked it and I picked it up later and it had no primer in it.
Yes, I did. I mean, and I'll be honest, I did the same thing over the weekend. Same exact scenario. I had no primer
so
around.
Bad. Why the hell do we use our own ammo?
What?
Shouldn't be allowed near a reloading press.
It's practice ammo. I don't give a shit. I don't QC it at all. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, I actually skipped it on that one. I was like, oh, I'm tired.
Yeah. Gabe, I'm guessing this all sounds quite funny to you, striker-fired guy.
Yeah, I really haven't shot a hammer-fired gun in I don't know how long, so it doesn't occur to me to do that.
Do you encounter bad primers on occasion? I imagine.
Honestly, the only bad primers that I remember running into, there's probably been one or two other than this, but that first time I took your class and I brought that can of Russian ammo to it in the freezing, there were a whole lot of problems with light strikes. And other than that, that's been about the only time.
Oh, because you shoot all factory ammo.
I don't shoot all factory ammo. I shoot some factory ammo, some not factory ammo. But haven't had any problem with any of the primers on any of it except that Russian stuff. There was a lot of problems.
Yes, that's good. I'm a lot more careful with my QC for my match ammo, but that's another story. All right, Candice, anything to say about this question?
No, just yeah, you really shouldn't keep jerking the trigger because that's just dumb. And if you do that in a match, I mean, maybe it'll work, but it'll probably just waste time.
Yeah, maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. Because, well, I think that people get in the habit of doing that because practice ammo for a lot of people tends to be way more spotty. Because for me,
yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Andreas had oh my god, 20% of his ammo didn't go off because his primers weren't seated. So he just was sitting there doing that.
Right. So
that's
that's
terrible.
Building it's not a super productive habit.
No.
All right, Gabe. Anything else to say?
Not really.
No. All right. Excellent. All right. So if you want to read a thread about gamers and Timmy's or whatever, Candice will put that link up in the show notes.
Yeah, it's
book
length. It's like as long as a book. I mean, it's 22 pages long. It's like a little booklet.
Yeah, yes.
I'm just saying, it's for an internet thread. I cannot believe it's going so long.
Well, put a link up to the Doodie thread too, so people can read all that bullshit.
Yes.
If you want to hit up Candice, do it on the YouTube channel. Gabe is now Mr. White on the forums. You don't have a legit website yet, do you, Gabe?
No, I'll get one sooner or later.
Yeah, please do. And if you want to hit up me, head over to bensteger.com. Send me your shooting questions. We'd love to talk about